Order the Muskegon County Ways and Means Committee meeting for March 8th, 2022, and it is 3:24 p.m. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Laring.
Here.
Commissioner Nash.
Here.
Commissioner Pego.
Present.
Chairman Skolnick.
Here.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Hovey Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Sear.
Here. Okay, the next item is approval of the agenda. I would like to remove without objection item number WM 22/03-22. At my Ways and Means Committee meeting, I don't believe I properly vetted this resolution, so I'd like to remove from the agenda.
Support. Move on to approval of the minutes.
So,
Okay, approval of the minutes of February 8th, 2020.
stop.
Okay,
So the correct procedure then will be, hearing no objection, then that matter is, or that item is removed. Right, so you can either do it by unanimous consent of the board, or if there is objection, then its motion is voted. Right, but not both.
okay,
Well, if there's an objection to removing it, then you can state the objection, and then there would be a motion and vote to remove it, if that's what the board desires to do.
But if there's no objection, then it's just removed. We can
If
do
there
it
is
that way.
no objection, that's correct.
okay. Hearing no objection, we remove it. Okay, the next item is approval of minutes of February 8th, 2022.
Wait,
So moved.
Mr. Chair, will that come back?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I mean, it's,
It has to be changed. There's some things that have to be
okay.
changed. Item four.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
just wanted to ask a question for staff to make sure this is not anything that's time sensitive or, you know.
No, it isn't. I've already asked that question.
No, it's not. Okay.
Okay, approval of the minutes, February 8th, 2022.
So moved. Support.
Any questions, concerns, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Finance reports, item number 5. Do we have a finance report today? Ms. Lowe, maybe?
They're in the packet.
Oh, they're in the packet. Okay, so we'll just file those.
Don't we get a
I
chance
didn't
to
know if
ask
it was a
questions on them
presentation or
before they
what it
go
was.
on?
It doesn't.
If you saw.
Did I get, I mean, when did we get that?
The email that
It's not in this packet.
on Friday.
On Friday? It's just online. It's not in our actual physical packet. Would you start including those in our packet so we can look at it? Second.
So just to be clear, so am I hearing that no one received it? We thought we included on Friday.
Not in the packet. It's separate, apparently.
Not in the hard copy here because it's like 100 pages.
Went
but
through the email.
It's through the email electronically.
Was it part of the agenda? Right now,
Yes.
the agenda packet, the 171 pages. we
That's why this
received,
is
Was it part of
171.
that?
Right, correct.
Then I'd say, got it.
I got one at 2:50. 2:35 today.
It's on Friday.
Okay, moving forward, any public comment on an agenda item, limit your comment to 2 minutes, please, and on an agenda item only. Yeah, okay. I have Fred Glancy. Public comment, please.
I see that there is public comment at the end of this agenda.
That's correct, on a non-agenda item.
Right.
So you're gonna move to that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Angie Knoll. Is your item related to what we just talked about, or is it different?
It's an agenda item, yes.
Okay,
My name is Angie Knoll. I'm the chief steward with Teamsters for the general employee unit. We are in support of the WB 2203-27. I have worked closely with Nancy, with Clerk Waters and the employees in her department. And I am urging you to support the merging of the two departments.
thank you, Angie. The next item, Alan Richards, I believe it relates to the digital. Okay, it relates to the item that's been, so you can comment at the end. Public comment, okay. All right, any other public comments or anybody online? Ideas?
I don't see anybody online with a
Okay.
comment anyway.
Items for consideration. Items for consideration, WM 22/03-17, to provide salary range adjustments for position N 32401 from pay table grade NO-00285 to pay table grade NO-00318 with incumbent community relations coordinator / executive assistant at step 5 and position N04901 from pay table grade N0-00315 to pay table grade N0-00345 with incumbent administrative coordinator step 4 at step 4.
So move.
Support. I have a motion in support on this item. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I have a question.
Commissioner Hughes, please.
It says incumbent community relations coordinator. What department is that?
So the title is our department, administration department. So we changed that title to when the last employee started there, it was called, let me read it correctly to you. It was called the executive assistant / community relations coordinator.
Okay, all right.
We just flipped it because there's
I'm
actually
good with
more.
that. Thank you.
Okay.
Now I understand it. Thank you.
Commissioner Payable.
Yeah, we just went through all of, at the end of the year, not long ago, didn't we just go through a bunch of wage reopeners and the 4% increase where it was for everybody, all the county employees? And I see quite a lot of increases in here. What's-
The wage reopener is 2.5% for members of the unions, different 9 unions and then
But
non,
didn't everybody just get a raise,
2.5%, correct,
like 2 months ago?
October 1st, yes.
Was it October? Okay, so 4 months ago. And so we've got quite a few different positions on here again today for more increases.
Yeah, for most of them, they're reorganizing their departments or reorganizing the task of work assignments. Most of them are more or different responsibilities than they were back in October.
So all of these that are on here today are because they have more increased responsibilities?
Well, I'll speak to the first one on there.
Okay.
Yes, we want more communication, relations, progress. We
This
also,
is 2 different positions on the one you're asking for this motion number 17.
on this one here, the 2 positions overlapped. So we're, by moving the bottom one, caused the next one to be paid the same. And that
Which is a
person's-
common occurrence here at the county that I've
Yeah,
identified.
but that person supervises the other one, so I had to have some separation there.
And so these are 2 employees that are current employees. This isn't another added
This
position.
is 2 existing positions.
Okay, thank you.
Where is the money coming for this? It says
It's not budgeted either.
okay. Administration's budget took $1,800. So it's coming out of your budget.
Right, correct, yes.
I read that, but at
Yeah.
the top it says it's not budgeted.
Is this community relations coordinator, executive assistant? Is that currently, that's not currently filled, is it?
That's the one that Kristen Barnhill occupies,
And you just hired
Oh,
one person for
okay.
this or 2 people? for
one
this?
person.
That's what I thought, one person.
So that position has been filled then?
The person's accepting in the position.
Okay.
We'll start the 14th.
And this is called the Community Relations Coordinator Executive Assistant.
Correct.
So that one is one that was vacated that has a new person coming into it.
Correct.
And then the other one is the Administrative Coordinator.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Did the administrative coordinator get a pay raise just not long ago?
October
October.
with all the other employees. Correct.
Okay, and how much, what percentage is it going up now?
So by dropping the bottom three, and increasing the next three, this motion here moves her up one step, which steps are roughly 4.7 to 5%.
Is her job gonna change?
No, not the.
Not the administrative coordinator's job.
Right.
So what is the reason for the pay increase?
That's where the two positions overlap and the person below,
Weren't they overlapping before?
not to this extent.
Okay.
Is it because you're bringing someone in from interdepartmental that's already in the county?
Yes, we are. But
And none of the other applicants were,
we had 17 applicants and 2 made it through, and the other one was an external employee.
and what about the cost related to that position if that person was qualified? Was that person, if it made it through, like,
Yeah, that person.
you see what I'm saying?
Didn't meet the, there was some conflicts that I noticed that I don't want to get into.
That's fine. So my other question is, with this much of an increase, I do know that in our policy also, people can't trail above what the county administrator income is. So how close are we from having to pay scale that up again?
No, that this, you would not have to on this one or the next one.
And then this says, this is it's not budgeted, but it's accounted for down here in the paragraph, $8,900 for fiscal year 2022. What happens in the fourth and the other years?
Yes, the amount saved due to the vacant position and doing the adjustments is actually a savings.
Right, that just says for fiscal year 2022. Is that
And
ongoing or
that'll
just for
cover, that savings
2022?
will cover 2023 and maybe a small percentage of 2024.
So more than just 2022. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Take a vote, please.
Commissioner Heavy Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
I want to say no, but I know you have to put up with us.
Yes.
Thank you, Melinda.
Commissioner Stolnich.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes.
I had written no.
Yes, it was.
Oh, well, I'm not. I got too much distraction.
It worked.
Okay, next item, WM 22/03-18, move from a part-time deputy county administrator to full-time deputy county administrator position at a pay grade table NV-00059 effective April 1st, 2022.
So moved. Support.
Motion and support on this item. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Chair Spolnik, please.
I'd just like to say that this has been a long time coming. I think I've talked about this before, but how you could run a business of this size with really not somebody that's directly under the administrator and somebody who could step in the event of an emergency really was foolish on our part. So
I also believe that it will help, I think, to free up some time for the administrator to be able to work on some more things that would help to improve the processes around here, and hopefully, reduce some of the costs if we can get, it just seemed like every time if he was gone for a week or something, or out to a conference or something like that, it was like, okay, who's in charge here? Who do we talk to? And I just believe this is probably a good idea to have somebody that can take that position when he's not here. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, also now, like when I text him at 2 in the morning, somebody will answer.
Any other
I
comments?
would have a question. It
Yes.
says funding for this position will be from 56,000 in savings obtained from the separation of the finance director and the deputy county administrator. That means that they're, yeah, that's what it
Correct.
takes the two apart. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I wanted to make sure.
But then it says the remaining will be covered by grants, the savings from the commissioner's budgets.
Yes.
Reduction in 2023.
Yes, since there's going to be a reduction from 9 down to 7
I
commissioners.
understand that, but why does it say grants?
Well, because I can use some of the funds to begin with, American Rescue Funds, to help oversee some of that. Funding.
Thanks. I have another question. I
Yes.
thought our finance director was overseeing that funding.
Well, I got actually multiple people involved in that. It's taken away from their work as well. So this person will be the main person in contact with our third party vendor to oversee. Make sure they spend the money according to the policies from the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Nash, go ahead.
So you're planning on posting?
Correct.
What did you say?
I was asking him, was it already filled? But he
No.
said, no, it's not. They're gonna post.
Going to post it once we approve it. Okay.
Is this going to be posted in the county and without the county, outside the county?
I mean, we definitely have qualified people internally, and then obviously external people that be interested. So it's really up to the board. If the board wants me to do both, I will.
It will be my opinion in that situation that we go inside the county because it would be nice for them to be aware of how the county runs, the county people, and be able to step right in because like Bob said, we have waited a long time for this. So I would lean towards having this, that somebody that's already well aware of what goes on. So that would be my recommendation.
Commissioner Nash?
I would say internal and external because there's a lot of shifting going on and we could land a gem from another county. You just never know.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
No,
Commissioner Skolnick,
2 yeses.
Commissioner Wilkins, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes. That item passes. Next item, WM 22/03-19, move to approve the contract renewal with Government Consulting Services, Inc., GCSI, to provide legislative consulting services for County RFP 19-2343 for a 3-year term in amount not to exceed $49,200 per year.
So moved.
Support.
Have a motion and support on this item. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Commissioner Hovey Wright, please.
Yes, so is this the same amount or a similar amount to what we paid?
It's a 2.5% increase.
2.5%, okay. And outside of the, how often do we get those? Twice a month? The reports? Or the
Sometimes weekly.
newsletters? Weekly, okay. And I read all of them. Okay. Outside of that, do we contact GCSI or do we use them outside of that?
Yes, frequently.
Okay,
Fred Johnson, Director of Public Defender's Office, used him for the MIDC funding.
for what?
MIDC funding, when we
Oh.
began the courts, they're a big owner of that. The judges use them quite frequently, especially in the latest part here for the additional judge that was used. I call him frequently on grants and how they might help or new Senate bills or House bills, how they might help the county as well.
Okay, but
That was my question too, so
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, Commissioner
I just
Nash?
had one question. This is a renewal of the previous that was done in 2019.
Correct.
So we didn't send this out for RFP to anyone else.
We did then,
Right,
but not,
but the 3 years are up, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
right, correct.
Okay, so I guess that's the only problem I have is that I think all RFPs should be sent out, especially considering the amount. You never know what's out there. And that's just a stickler of mine, so.
Okay.
For that reason, I would vote no.
And I'm gonna follow up on Charles' question. Was there an option to renew on this?
It was an option for reconsideration without the increase. So the increase is the big difference between
Okay.
what's written in there.
And it was 2%, or
Yeah,
2.5%. Thank you.
Commissioner, I'll be right, go ahead.
yeah, in answer to, or in response to Commissioner Nash, I know from working in Lansing that GCSI has a really good reputation. And I'm not sure we can do any better unless there's something new.
It's not
Since
about
I've been there.
GCI. It's just about
Yeah.
doing things in a certain way. And it's nothing against them.
Charles, what would you, do you have a recommendation?
No, I prefer things to be resent out
I'll for quote.
and redo it. That way we can make sure if they're still the only one, it's fine, but at least we did our due diligence as far as, you
If
know.
you make that motion, I'll second it.
Well, I would make that motion to,
Well,
well,
motion on the
we got a
floor.
motion already that we can't.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I agree with Commissioner Nash, so I'll vote no.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Laring,
No,
Commissioner Nash,
no,
Commissioner Pego,
No.
Commissioner Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes,
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes,
Commissioner Seer.
Yes.
That passes 6-3.
Thank you. That item passes. The next item, WM 22/03-20, move to commence the transition of Health West from an agency, a county department, to a community mental health authority.
So moved.
And a motion in support. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I would have one.
Yes, Commissioner Hughes, go ahead.
I thought that this was gonna happen in October, and now it looks like December. Is there a reason for that?
I'm reading through here.
The very last line says, it is anticipated that the completion of the transition would occur by the end of 2022.
I mean, the goal is sooner. We have Director Julie Rupp here, probably can answer that strategy as far as,
I think the intention was fiscal year 22, which would be.
it could be
Yeah.
October
Which would
1st.
be the end of September first.
So I would like to change that to say fiscal year.
Second. I'll change my motion since I moved it to
That's
say
not,
fiscal year 2022.
that's not part of the motion, that's just in the summary.
Well, let's add it to the motion.
support. So that would be
Is this,
actually till
motion to amend
October
or what?
1 of
I'm not sure where
2020.
We'll
we're at
just-
right now.
Move to commence the transition of Health West from an agency, a county department, to a community mental health authority by the end of fiscal year 2022. Just adding
Is this
those,
a friendly amendment?
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
By the end of fiscal year 2022, that's all we're adding.
And the motion, the mover and supporter are good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Commissioner Hovey, right?
I'd like to hear from Julia Rupp. The stuff that I read indicated it would be completed in 2023. And this seems to, no, am I wrong? 22. All right, so you're okay with, okay, all right.
Commissioner Nash, go ahead.
I think we're all really still fooling ourselves because this is not gonna happen in September. It's not, probably not even gonna happen in 22. So I just think we're jumping the gun. We're doing a lot of paperwork, but we're not really paying attention to what's really going on. And for that reason, I'm going to vote no. I don't think this is ever going to happen until we get our 12, 13 million back. It just won't happen. So.
Any other comments? Chair Skolnick, go ahead.
So I don't understand what happened with the motion. Was the motion made and supported?
That's correct.
And then there was an amendment?
Correct.
I amended my motion because I motioned it and Susie is the one that seconded it. So it was a friendly amendment to the name of the motion.
No, I mean,
That's
No,
it.
we're just, that's the
the
new
only
motion.
time, the only time that the friendly amendment does not work is after the chair has read the motion again and you're preparing to vote. Before that, you can have a friendly amendment and the county has acted in that way.
Thank you.
And then,
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just want to be sure that Mrs. Rupp is okay with this. I'm concerned that October is not far away or the end of the year.
I
is not
know,
far
I
away.
don't understand. Go ahead.
Julia Rupp, Director of Health West. I am okay with it. And the reason is because the strategy is that we'll move to authority status, but for all practical purposes, we're going to continue to purchase most services through the county. So we don't have to make every transition. It gives us that legal separation strategy, but we're still going to be purchasing all of the services, HR, most finance services through the county. The advantage of that is that it lets us it moves us to that legal separate authority, but it gives both us and the county time to work through all of these processes, which are pretty complicated. And is that an aggressive timeline? Yes, I believe it is. But so far we're on track to make those timelines.
Mr. Chairman, yes, just.
Yes, go ahead.
A little bit. I mean, it's not that I don't want you to be an authority, I do. But do any of the other close to 80 counties that have authorities still rely on the county?
Yes.
So that's a common procedure?
Yeah, I mean, there's various different, the best example I have is I think that the Detroit Wayne had to move to authority status in 6 months. Now they're considerably larger than us. How did they do that? Using the same strategy we are, which is to continue to purchase services through county government.
Sure, how you right? Go ahead.
Yeah, the big question, of course, is the 12 to 13 million dollar debt. Do you think we can resolve that by October?
That's the big question.
Ask
Let's talk
corporate
about that in the
counsel.
work session.
I really don't know.
If you're
I'm
talking
sure.
about resolution of the litigation, the answer is definitely not.
Okay,
If the department wants to pay it, we would accept it at any time.
so you don't think it would necessarily have to hold up this transition?
It's going to impact it. To what degree
Yeah.
yet, I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't know how you're gonna get a loan from a bank when you have a 12 million, or we have a $12 million debt. Sure.
Mr. Chair.
I
Commissioner
think
Payable.
we're waiting for an answer. from
I'm
Julia.
supportive of moving in this direction, you know that, yeah.
I just want to remind the commissioners that you have the ability to change your mind, pull us back in, change the date. It's really in your control. I mean, if we get close to this and you don't like the way that settlement's going, or we come back to you and say, oh my gosh, we have this issue, you can change course. I think in large part what it does is just, there's a lot of things in the process to keep moving forward, like 3 public hearings. And one of the first things that has to happen is you have to have this resolution. So it helps
Oh, I
us
see.
moving forward.
So this
And
just gives
that's
us,
still our target, but it's not like, a big line in the sand drawn that you can't change your mind or you can't make adjustments.
okay.
Commissioner Larry, do you have?
Julie just made the point. We sat through a 2-hour work session regarding this very issue. This motion just allows Health West to have a public hearing so that they can get public input on this direction.
Mhm.
And so you answered my question ahead of time. The board needs to realize this is not
Part of
an
the
official
process.
movement. It's just a a step in the process of doing this, to have the
Right.
public hearings.
After the public hearings, you could completely change direction.
Any other questions?
No, I'm also.
You're all set?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Another reason I'm concerned with this is because we're doing this right in the middle of litigation. And we're connected with the LRE, and there's some funding that's still owed this community. Now, how is this gonna impact that? I'm not sure, but I think it's gonna make the water a lot more muddier, considering moving forward. And we may be even shooting ourselves in the foot of being able to collect that, moving in this direction. So there's something that I think we all really need to think about, or we just keep pushing this train down the road, because it's gonna have an impact one way or the other.
Yes, Commissioner Hughes, go ahead.
I do have a question. I guess this would be for our council. If we do move forward with this and make them an authority before we give them paid back, does that make it so that we won't get paid back, or does that affect that at all?
It could have an effect on it, the extent of which I don't yet know, but I agree with Commissioner Laring that taking this step will not affect it at this time. We will have an opportunity to fully vet that question for
Okay.
the.
Thank you.
for the-
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm gonna roll call, please.
Commissioner Nash,
No.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes.
Commissioner Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes,
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes. That item passes. The next item, WM 22/03-21, move to approve payment of the accounts payable of $19,461,812.15, covering the period from January 15th, 2022 through February 11th, 2022, and P card, purchase card, and electronic funds transfer payments covering the period from January 1st, 2022 through January 31st, 2022, as presented by the county clerk.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion and support. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
Commissioner
would like
Hughes, go
to
ahead.
get something that shows us all the bills that were paid so that we can look through them and see if there are any questions on any of them. So,
Commissioner, the attachment that we were referring to earlier, the 170 pages, that's what,
It's in there.
Okay.
that's all that's there.
Okay.
There's a synopsis.
We didn't get that in a very timely manner, so it's kind of hard to go over. But thank you.
Just to comment that these are, so there are already electronic funds transfers taking place, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I thought too when I read that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
22.
21.
Commissioner Nash, go ahead.
Well, and I thought about that because I was getting sent questions from different people regarding that, and it was surprising to me that people aren't aware. We've been doing electronic transactions for years now, and this has been going on.
Right.
It's like, oh, next thing you know, the public will be getting it, and it's like, well, the public was doing it first. And so now we're trying to move to the bigger businesses to make these a little bit easier. And I believe it was mainly because of the pandemic and how things were going, and it was slowing a lot of things up, so that now we can use electronic payment and get people paid in a timely manner without paper checks.
Yeah, that's correct.
Any other questions? Roll call, vote, please.
Commissioner Pego,
No.
Commissioner Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes,
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes. That item passes. The next item, WM 22/03-22, a move to adopt. a
No, that was removed from the agenda.
Oh, sorry, didn't cross it off. Thank you. Item.
I have a
WM
question about your removal. What was your reason for removing it?
It's not on the agenda. We can't talk about it anymore.
We talked about that. WM 22/03-23, move to authorize the finance department to renew the bonfire software agreement for 2 years with an additional license of $13,100 annually, and to authorize the board chair to execute the agreement.
Support.
Motion and support. Questions, comments, concerns on this item?
I do have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
Can I find out what the extra license is for, or who it's for, or how that works?
Hello, Angela Gashesky, Finance Director. The extra license, this is our software program that we use to run procurement, procurement solicitations through. We are bringing more resources into that function to allow things to run a little bit more smoothly and to have backup. So we need to have 3 people working in that program.
Thank you.
Commissioner Payable,
When
go
you
ahead.
say more resources, can you be more detailed? And then, so you're saying there's gonna be an additional third person, does that mean you're hiring another additional person?
It does not mean we're hiring an additional person. It means that we are training people to cross-train across the department so that there are people already existing in positions that are now trained to use the software and perform the function.
I'm all for cross-training, that's wonderful. What are the additional resources?
That would just be someone from a different part of the department learning.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Laring, go ahead.
Why is it not budgeted?
Oh, yeah, that too.
This is adding an additional license, so it's costing, I think, $3,600 for an additional license for this.
But you didn't perceive this, or it wasn't perceived, we'd have to have this add when we created the 2022 budget.
Yes, I actually wasn't involved in that budget at the time, so we've changed course in the department a little to enable the functions to learn across the department.
But it wasn't in the 2022 budget.
No,
You didn't.
we do
anticipate
have funds to cover it in the budget. It's not going to show as an increase to the budget.
So it shows it partially budgeted. So where are the resources coming from?
The additional resources are going to come from funds that we did not spend in 2021.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just want to say thank you. Cross-training's been something that I've mentioned before, and it's very
Huge. Yeah.
important for successful business, so thank you.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes,
Commissioner Seer.
Yes. That item passes. Next item is WM 22/03-24. Move to authorize Kurt Heisel, Muskegon County Corrections Officer, to purchase 2 years of MERS generic service credit at a cost of $39,859. 100% of the total actuarial cost will be paid by the employee.
so moved.
Support.
I have a motion and support. Questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I guess I have one comment.
Go ahead.
I think, I really appreciate that the county lets us do this when we get close to retirement and
Yeah.
so they don't lose any of their benefits or anything. I appreciate that very much.
Some other questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes,
Commissioner Skolnick,
Yes.
and Commissioner Seer.
Yes. That item passes. The next item is WM 22/03-25, the move to approve the resolution to relinquish the Fielder County drain to the city of Norton Shores per their resolution to transfer jurisdiction of the drain to the city and authorize the board chair to sign the
so
resolution.
moved.
Support.
Second.
And a motion and support on this item. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner.
Where the old drain was located, for when it was moved to its new location, how much acreage is that?
I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you, Commissioner. We found this situation, we were looking at all our files and updating drain records and looking at the drains, and the drain wasn't there. And what had happened in the city of Norton Shores over time is there was development and they put the drain in a tube. And I think they shifted it over, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 feet. It wasn't even, the original county drain wasn't where it was originally when it was created, I think in the early 1900s. And it's like, well, this is kind of moot for us to keep jurisdictions. So.
So the property where the drain is supposed to be will be annexed over to the city of Norton Shores? Is that
It's an
right?
annex, it's a relinquishment to say, you know what, this doesn't make sense to be a county drain anymore. You take it over, you manage it, you pay for it. Because it wasn't meant to be underground, but over time, it just happened. It's a pretty short thing.
Okay, and so we don't know, I'm just wondering the value of the property that will be taken over by the city of North. Does it, I mean, are we talking less than
It's
2
an
acres?
easement, it's probably honestly, I would guess 6 blocks long. It's not a very long drain, and there was just easement ability. I don't know that there's much of a value to it.
Okay.
Chair Colvin, please.
Chair. Does the city have the right to assess work on that?
No, with the relinquishment is there's no ability to assess. They will decide on their own how they're going to manage it. Frankly, they've taken care of it for the last 20 years. We just found out going through old records. We didn't see the strain, what's going on. It's
They don't, so they maintain it. They don't take
Right.
any powers to assess for things like that.
correct. They just maintain it under their budget and they would choose how to.
Seeing no other questions, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
It passes. Next item, WM 22/03-26, the move to approve a 2-step merit increase for the Deputy Water Resources Commissioner position X28701 from pay table grade NX-00300 step 1 to NX 00300 step 3, effective March 8th, 2022, and add to the budget with no overall increase.
Would you like me to speak to that or?
There's no motion.
No
Yeah.
motion. There's no
Everyone's
motion in
looking at me.
second.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion and support on this item. Now we can have comment.
Would you like me to give you a quick overview? Thank you. Last February, we lost our deputy. She retired. And that said, and I wrote a memo, hopefully not being too redundant because I know you guys look things over. But that sent us through a series of changes, frankly, I didn't expect. And part of it was there were findings in the last 2 audits that because there were only 2 of us in the department, I should not be levying taxes, and then the deputy who creates the assessment roll should not be collecting money. And we had been doing it because there were just the 2 of us. And there were several other things where we started working with Angie's department, and I really have to take my hat off to her, where are you, and her staff, because it's like we need to do things different. We need to keep records differently. We had records in 2 or 3 different formats. And although the previous deputy did a fantastic job, it was just too much paper and too much things going on. So my point is, I should have probably said this before, but a 2-step increase I don't take lightly. I need to come and see you. And the point of my memo was to emphasize all the things that Mr. Goldberg did was above and beyond the call of duty. And one of them I did not expect, because he's a natural resource major and not a money guy, was we had to fundamentally shift how we kept track of almost everything, even though it was appropriate, but it shouldn't have been in 2 hands. So we worked with Angie's office, and there's another incredible young man that helped us out. But what Dallas had to do, our deputy now, was learn the software. He analyzed how we did things. He came up with suggestions to make it better. And he was actually a team member, not just someone being dragged along trying to learn. There were also amendments to the drain code that obligated us to do more in terms of notice and work when we assess. And that was something we both had to learn together. There wasn't much help in most of this, frankly. And then this was a culmination, this last year was a culmination of years of trying to clean up
drains that were in the red or finances that just weren't in good order. And I had planned on doing a record number of assessment rolls. You just don't create those in software. You have to go and look at every single parcel. There's been a split or a join. You have to change the apportionment, and there's a lot of work behind that. And I was saying to Dallas, I think we better like back off on this and do it next year. This is just too much to ask you to learn and take on. He said, let me try. We did it. Some other things that he had the training for, but that were very impressive is we got a state audit of our soil erosion control. We're both certified operators, but they look at our records and they make sure we're doing what we're supposed to. I've never been audited. I'm like, this is good timing. But he had been, so he took charge of that audit and it went very smoothly. He was very professional, did a fantastic job. We also have drain inspections are kind of tough because you'll take pictures and you try to write a report and there's no way to integrate them in mapping. And so he was working with our GIS staff and said, it's got to be a better way we can do this. So he worked with them and he actually developed in GIS, put it together, an inspection module that you could take pictures that integrates with GIS. We can do work orders, we can do enforcement letters, everything comes out of the system and it really makes it so we can be much more productive. We did the Black Creek project in his first year of employment, which was 9 contractors, $5.some million, and a whole bunch of stuff going on. He just helped take charge of that. It was very helpful to me in the field. And then lastly, my point was, he goes, well, on the Pearson Drain, we wanted to create wetlands and we had property, but I wanted to look for a grant to create those wetlands. In the midst of all this chaos, and frankly, my head's swimming too, he says, there's a grant I'd like to go for. I said, you're new, it's been 3 months. There's a grant I'd like to go for. He landed it, $200,000 grant to create 2 wetlands. He's truly an exceptional guy. I was really hoping he could take my place, but he doesn't live in Muskegon County. So, perhaps my best legacy is to leave behind a very ambitious, creative, and dedicated drain person. And so I'm asking you to acknowledge that and give him a 2-step increase for all his efforts in the last year. Today's his 1-year anniversary, by the way, and he did not run away.
Brenda, any other questions?
I do have some questions.
Oh, go ahead.
I noticed on your motion, on the first thing, suggested motion, it says with no overall increase. And on the bottom line, it says the budget impact will be approximately a $3,500 increase expense.
That was my bad. I had a couple people helping me out with that one. I said there was no increase, and I think both Angie and Mark corrected me. So I apologize.
Didn't get corrected in ours. I also want to know why this was not budgeted. You said you've been thinking about this for a long time. Why didn't you put it in your budget?
Well, we were in the midst of last year's budget, and I don't have a chance. We haven't done this year's budget yet. His anniversary fell between 2 budgets.
But you didn't know you wanted to give him a raise back when you did the 22 budget?
We haven't done the 22 budget yet. Oh, the last year's budget, sorry.
We have done the 22 budget. I don't know where you were, but we did it.
I wasn't about to give him any consideration until he made his 1-year mark. And that's when I had the time to make this determination. Today is his anniversary.
But you weren't anticipating it back when?
I was thinking he really, he was quite a gem, but to be honest with you, when did we do, last year's budget?
Like we do it the same time every year. It starts
in August. No, I wasn't there yet because we were just starting assessments. So, the real test was right around, remember, he started in March. So right away, the pressure started and it really ramped up June, July, August. And when he asked to do the assessment rolls, I said, I have the right to abort. We were getting into September and finishing up the rolls. And frankly, that was the one thing on my mind is pull all that off. Good question. I'm not that good of a multitasker.
Any other questions?
I have one
Yes,
more.
Commissioner Larry, go ahead.
How does this bring in line the idea that we can't have an employee in a department making more than an department head? Are we getting close to that?
If he tops out, he's probably close to what I'm making. I'm not about to ask anybody for a raise. I know I haven't been all that popular, but we're safe. We've got 6 steps. I think that's my phone. I apologize. I thought I turned it off.
Any other questions?
Take care of the youngin.
Commissioner Paygo?
I understand where you're coming from, Commissioner Moore, with him that had been here for a full year yet before you were considering any kind of a pay raise. So I appreciate that. And this is only $3,500. So, but however, we do have to amend the actual motion because it contradicts the content. So that actually, it says with no overall increase, so that would have to be stricken. And I'll refer to
That
corporate
was, I think,
counsel on
in the
how we,
suggested motion. So,
how
yeah.
do we address that, Mike?
So like any other, just
Right.
amend it.
Yeah, so it wasn't made when the motion was made, so when you do
Do you
that
have to make a
now.
motion to amend it?
Well, there
Is this a-
hasn't been a recitation of the motion that was made. Oh, maybe there was.
Yeah,
Who made the motion?
yeah.
It was Commissioner Hovey Wright and Nash.
So
Can they do a
a
friendly
friendly
amendment?
amendment, you can just take that off.
You
Right.
two can.
And I'm
decide.
fine with that.
Okay,
Yeah, take the one that says no with no overall.
just
increase.
remove with
The
no
last
overall
four
increase. Yep,
words.
okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Leering,
No,
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes,
Commissioner Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes.
I know I have another step, but thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate sharing. Next item is WM 22/03-27. So here we go. Move to authorize the reclassification and salary adjustments for the following county clerk's office positions and change the budget according to the position with no increase to fiscal year 2022. County clerk deputy classification bargaining from table grade GU-00173 to county clerk specialist table grade GU-00215. Circuit court clerk classification bargaining from pay table grade GU-00150 to county clerk specialist pay table grade GU-00215. Administrative secretary position N04008, non-bargaining from table grade N0-00165 to county clerk administrative assistant, table grade N000212. Increase the pay scale for the CPL/jury clerk position G27901 bargaining, table grade GU-00200 to table grade GU-00245.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I do have some questions on this.
Commissioner Hughes, please go ahead.
Ms. Waters? You feel like you're under scrutiny?
No.
I do have a couple of questions. One of them, my concern is that this will in some way impact the county clerk from the department that serves the public from moving to Baker. And I'm asking if that's going to have
So
any
I
effect.
just want to tell you, Commissioner, that I've asked the administrator on a couple of meetings with him that I would like to have a small satellite office out there at Baker College where I would have 2 employees. That'll be in the next few budgets, not now, that I would provide 2 of my employees there. Plus, the county clerk is clerk to the county board of commissioners. And while I haven't been able to come recently, and I've been sending my assistant here, that would give me a small little office out there to be able to be there for your board meetings and things like that we're required to do. But more importantly, when they come out to Baker College for services from these other departments and everything, they would be able to stop there in the satellite office where I'd have 2 people, and they'd be able to give birth certificates, marriage licenses, death certificates, things like that. I would not have CPL licenses out there because I think that I need the security of what we have here coming through the front door. So on a couple of occasions, I keep reminding the administrator and Mike Fair that I want to have a small satellite office out there in order to provide some of these major services that we can do for them.
So you're not going to have those services available here?
So they would still be available here because the law says statutorily that the county clerk is the clerk of the court. And therefore, the county clerk has to be wherever the courts are. And because the courts are staying here, my primary office will be here. I'll still have a first floor. And then, of course, my sixth floor where the court clerks are. But that being said, there's just no way I can move out there and take everything out there, but I did ask for satellite.
But seems to me you could be able to take everything out there that the people need. So
Yeah,
that you
exactly.
could close this one down here, and just keep the court one open.
You'd be surprised, Commissioner, how many times a day the county clerk has to make a final decision on whether I'm going to accept this as a paper document that maybe they didn't have. We had a guy in today, they'd gotten married in Jamaica. When they got married in Jamaica, they should have given them a certified copy of their marriage license. They didn't. He came to the staff person and said, I'd like to have a marriage here. And I stepped in because I had to say, the state has made it clear to us that anytime you have had a marriage, you are married and that we cannot remarry you. And so there's lots of times where I do have to step in and make a final decision on things. I wish it were such, and I wish I had two of me where one could be here dealing with court issues. And I'm also the jury clerk. And therefore I have to make a lot of decisions, but I'm just saying, so that's one reason why.
And that couldn't be done by telephone?
No, we swear them in.
No, I mean, you could have answered that
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
about the marriage online.
I've tried to think about everything. In fact, Sandra Vanderhyde just sent me a kiosk type of thing that we'll try to look at. But at this point, I just didn't feel that I could take my whole staff out there.
Because for me, that's one of my big concerns is that all of the processes that the residents use are going to be in one place. And for you to only have two people there, I've been in there when you're super busy in that department and two people aren't going to cover all the stuff.
Well, I'm even adding 2 additional people in my next year's budget to be able to accommodate that out there. I can tell you that when we were across the street for 3 years, when they were remodeling the first floor, they tell me over there that almost a week doesn't pass where people are still coming over there to get birth certificates. Because once they get used to some place, and this is the place that they're used to in coming for getting all of their documents. But, Ottawa County is a county that has satellite offices. They have their main office where their county clerk is, and then they have a satellite office in Holland, and then they have a satellite office at the court for people there, so they don't have to come out to Fillmore Road. So I think more and more as people are moving, commissioners are moving and having such a wonderful opportunity to go there. When I toured that facility, don't think for a minute, I didn't get excited about what we might be able to do.
It seems like you're kind of defeating that purpose by not,
Well, the best I can do right now is for the satellite office, if that goes through.
Commissioner Howie Wright?
Yeah, Nancy, or Ms. Waters, Clerk Waters, how many staff do you have in the judicial part of your
So
responsibilities,
upstairs,
and how many in the clerk's?
so upstairs in the upstairs office, I have 8, but we have 5 vacancies right now. And downstairs on the first floor, I have 5, and we have 3.5 vacancies right now.
Wow. I guess I'm concerned that if all the other services related to the public if most of them are here and there's only 2 staff out there, I would think you'd want to have it be the reverse.
So with that being said, one of the things that I've done, Angie Knoll was here today because all my employees are union employees. So I don't get to make lots of calls that you'd think maybe I get to make.
No, I understand why you want to combine the offices, but what I don't understand is the locating only 2 at the college where most of the public is going to get everything else.
Well, when you say most of the public will get everything else, they can get marriage licenses there, they can get certified copies of birth certificates there, they can get DBAs there, they can renew their notaries there. The things that I'm not willing to let them have out there would be CPL. I can tell you, we get lots and lots and lots of CPLs.
Right.
So I've tried to think about what we can put out there, how much service we can give, and how they get those documents really from us, because it takes the security paper and everything else.
Commissioner Nash.
Well, number one, I think, I agree with Madam Clerk that, when people have been getting their clerk services done at the county building for, I don't know how many years, as long as this building's been here, people are not going to quickly go out to the new building. It's just not going to happen. And I think starting with a satellite is a great way to start it. And if it sees the increase, then maybe there's a way to nullify that and an increase over time. But I don't think anyone would go out there for clerk services knowing that they've been here all these years. And I do like the idea of the combination of groups, which is kind of like setting things up for, again, cross-training, so that the clerk can be more effective, because I know that's been a big hindrance, is being able to work across these different lines, but now combining them, cross-training them, she can use them a little bit, probably, they could be more useful in different ways than they have been in the past. And so, I like the idea and the way that you're trying to move forward. And I think it would just take some time to see if there's a need for increased services out there.
And I might let you know, Commissioner, that when I became county clerk in 2009, they were combined. They were all county clerk deputies. There was no separation. And it was after being here for a couple of years that it became obvious when one of the judges came to me and said, this pay is so low, you need to raise the pay and make them a circuit court. So we changed everything, raised their pay. Well, then in a little bit, here comes the other ones downstairs saying, why should their pay be higher than our pay? And it's taken me this long to realize that it will be beneficial for our citizens as well as our employees to merge them back together again.
Yeah, and I think it'll help us hang on to them.
Yeah.
Mr. Leering, go ahead.
So a lot of this conversation revolves around moving out to the Baker campus, which that decision hasn't been made yet. This seems a little bit premature to me to be basing these decisions on something that may or may not happen. I think it would be better timing if we waited till that decision was made and then we decided what that office was going to contain. I think determining what services are going to happen here versus there is premature at this point. So
That's exactly what I was gonna
I
say.
appreciate those comments.
Commissioner Howie, right?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's still valid. The idea of combining and cross-training is still valid if we stay here. If everything stays here, it still makes the staff more flexible. It gives them a pay raise so that we can retain. We're short too many people, so the pay raise makes sense.
And I'd like to address the pay raise. We're probably one of the very, very few offices in county government during 2020, 2022, 2021, and now even 2022. My staff has never been able to work from home. We have been required to be here every single day because funeral homes with deaths and the death certificates they need for their constituents and the new babies being born, where the mothers are told to come to the county clerk's office in the first 30 days to get those babies on the insurance, especially if they need some medical service right away. This staff has been so good, and we're one of the few. Now, I've just recently, because of the shortness of staff, had to reduce. We usually were open from 8:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock or 4:30 if it was for birth certificates at 4 o'clock on CPL. And then we also always kept it open during the lunch hour from 12 to 1 so that people outside of the building who needed service from us could get those services. They have never, there was no way we could have them work at home because we have numbered security paper from the state that the state issues to us. And there was just no way we could figure out a way in 2020 that they could work from home and process for 2021 or even now in 2022. I've mentioned on a couple of occasions to the administrator that those employees of mine feel that they've been given the raw deal because I've had them come every single day. They've had to put gas in their car every single day. They haven't been able to work from home. And so now we're trying to get in a way where I tried to find some money to be able to pay and reward them. Because that's how we work on this.
Good for you.
Clerk Waters, you have on your staff reclass and wage adjustment, you have 5 positions, apparently county or specialist positions. You want to change it to those 5 vacancies. How long have they been vacant? Do you know?
So I can tell you just a few weeks ago, there were 15 that applied for the job. Of the 15 that applied for the job, I only required a 40 word per minute, which I think is very low for typing. And of those 15, some of them decided they didn't want to change wherever they were. Some of them didn't want to come in for testing. Of those that came in for testing, only 3 passed that test. And Linda Larson, my chief deputy, she and I interviewed the 3. They were wanting to come in, 2 of them wanted to come in at a minimum of $19 an hour. And I asked them, would you be willing to accept less than 19? Because, you know, my union employees.
Clerk Waters, I'm sorry. I was just wanted to know how long these 5 have been vacant. That's
A
my
long
question.
time.
A week, a month,
Oh, several
year,
months.
10 years?
Several months.
Not 10
Several
years,
months,
but
okay.
several months.
Okay. All right. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
You skipped over
There
me
you
5
go.
times.
I'm sorry.
So,
Sorry.
So what I was gonna say is exactly what Commissioner Waring said, actually, is that it's a bit premature speculating a move that we have not contracted at all. Second, can you clarify here, in the motion at the top, it says, et cetera, change the budget according to the position with no increase to fiscal year 2022. Then at the end, it says the annual increase in cost, including salary and fringes, is approximately $36,814 to be paid from the CPL fund. And then it says it will generate an annual general fund savings of $2,292.45. Can you explain in detail all of that?
Sure. So we have a CPL fund that we get paid from the state for every CPL that we're
Yep.
processing.
Where does that money generally go?
That money generally is just sitting there and can only by law be used and designated by the county clerk. It could go for equipment, for our fingerprinting equipment, for the cards that we have to buy, for some of my CPL clerk's salary, not all of it. And I've been waiting for a few years before I would even look at touching it, because there'd been some talk that the legislature might be making CPL licenses with no fees and no licenses. And so I had it sitting there growing. And so that's when I made the decision that this was the way to come and use some of that. I've never used it before for anything other than what the state law says.
So, so you're planning on taking that cost out of the CPL fund?
Yes, and I've had the finance department confirm that there's enough money in there for us, because we have 3 people in today for CPL licenses, that there's going to be enough ongoing service that even when we take that out, we'll be able to pay for the raise for the next fiscal year, the next fiscal year, the next fiscal year.
So it'll continually acquire and continually be taken from the CPL fund? Those
For
funds?
those raises, not for the employees' costs, but for the raises.
But the raises, the amount of the shortfall or whatever from the raise continually will be coming from the CPL fund.
Yes, and I've had that confirmed from the finance department that the funds are there.
And then, so can you explain the general fund savings of
So the general fund
2022?
savings is because with us paying these raises, when they put everything together, they said, oh, you're going to have a savings out of the general fund. So I'm not.
Is
an
that just
accountant.
because you're like reapportioning money from the CPL fund, Angie? Is that why there's a savings?
Yeah.
Okay. I understand it. No, I get it. unless anyone else needs explanation. Thank you.
And the question that I have, Madam Clerk, is you're not planning on raising the CPO license cost, are you?
I don't get to, except by the legislature.
Not, yeah.
We don't get to raise anything.
Okay.
So we're assuming going forward, the CPL fund will generate this cash over and over again, year after year.
I can tell you now that I have enough in there for the next 2 to 3 years. If we didn't have another person walking in the door for a CPL license, and we had 3 in this morning.
How much is the CPO license?
It's $115 because we do the fingerprinting. We don't get all of it. The state police gets half of it, and we get half of it. And
Okay, because you said you had 250 people per year for the last 4 years.
I don't know where we came up with that figure.
It says almost 1,000 additional CPLs in 2018 to 2021.
I can tell you that we never have any idea when any of the clubs are doing pistol training. Last week, 2 weeks ago, there were 42 people on a Saturday that went for training. We knew when the first one came in on Monday that we were going to see 41 more because the law says you have to get your CPL license in the county you reside in.
Yep.
Chair Skolnick, please.
Well, I just, the comment that I wanted to make was, I know we're kind of giving everybody the Inquisition treatment here when it comes to raises. And yet, in the case of Mrs. Waters, it appears to me from what she said and the number of missing people that she's short, you're probably missing 30% of your staff because you can't hire them. I don't know what if you want to pay people $14 or $15 an hour, you're probably not going to get any. I stopped at McDonald's today and there's a big sign out for $15 across the street, $15.50 for third shift at Walmart. And this job is stressful. Besides, I went in there the other day, asked a question. It was around noon. There was only one person in the office that I could see. Maybe somebody would have been back. That really isn't enough people. That office gets busy sometimes. It's really busy. And some of the questions take time. You want a CPL license, it all takes time.
So remember that we're a mandated department and the state tells us all the things we have to do.
But probably one of the reasons that there was one person there was because you just don't have enough people. And it's not that you don't want to hire them, it's that you're not able to. So anyway, that's
yeah. And Commissioner, I just want to tell you that there was an employee that's there working hard who came to me, let's see, today's Tuesday, yesterday, and said she had heard on the news that Target stores said they were not able to hire employees at $16 an hour, and they're raising theirs to $24 an hour. And I said to this employee, I said, well, it sounds good for $24 an hour, but I'm sure it's probably not a full-time job. I'm sure it's not the benefits you get here. I mean, I'm forever trying to talk my employees to stay with me when they think that the gravy on the other side is deeper and darker and better.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
No.
Chairman Skolnick,
yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
No.
Commissioner Steer,
Yes. That item passes. We move on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished
We have one.
business? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We have what now?
Item number 28.
It's not on my list. Yeah, so I can read it. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item number WM 22/03-28 to approve the resolution authorizing amendment to master equipment lease purchase agreement and authorize Brandy Carlson, Chief Financial Officer of Health West, to execute the agreement.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and support. Any questions, comments?
I have
or concerns?
I do
Yes,
have
go
a
ahead.
question on that. First of all, they want to finance some more equipment over there, vehicles specifically. They got vehicles over there that they never even drive, they've been sitting there for years. So, I mean, I certainly am not in any way, shape, or form willing to move forward on something like that. Especially right now, when you're talking about a couple months, that they're gonna be an authority, let them buy their own vehicles then.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Pagel.
So I noticed this is a 4-year contract and we're trying to become an authority. Is there transferability on this lease? Is Julia or Brandy, somebody, corporate counsel, somebody wanna address that? I'm familiar with leases and usually they are transferable, but we're trying to, you
Yeah,
know,
it was discussed. Brandy, did you want to add to that?
Randy Carlson, Chief Financial Officer for Southwest. Those can be transferable, correct, Trevor Council? I'm gonna look at you.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, this is under a master agreement. The way this came up was there is a master agreement for the leasing of these vehicles. The problem was that Ford Motor Credit Company needs an opinion from our office concerning the taxability of the interest on the lease so that it would be tax exempt. That's part of the deal, right? Health West is department of the county, and because of that, they can engage in these lease agreements where the lease then is not subject to taxability.
so that's why it came to us?
That's why.
I was wondering why it came to us.
Yeah, because part of the lease agreement says that, you know, you're a local subdivision of government, which Health West is not. It's just a department of the county. Health West has been engaged in this under the master agreement since 2014. And so the only thing that triggered this coming to the county was the form of the opinion that we have to write concerning the taxable issue of the interest for Ford Motor Credit.
Okay, so this, I understand it completely. Okay, thank you.
So is this to help cut their costs?
No, well, they get a certain rate through my deal, right? They're negotiated rates, but because this is a lease agreement, those lease payments to Ford Motor Credit would otherwise be taxable to Ford Motor Credit unless they're tax exempt. And because it's Department of the County, they are tax exempt, but they need an approving opinion from corporate counsel. Ford Credit does. And the way it's structured would not allow me to write that on behalf of Health West.
So.
Commissioner Pagel, please.
So so because the lease goes till 2024, or I'm sorry, the 4-year lease, 2026, I guess. So they would have that tax exempt status now, but then once they become an authority and they're not underneath the county, they would lose that tax exempt status.
They would
No.
become, they would then be tax exempt. Like in the future, they can enter into their own lease agreements because they're tax exempt. And their lawyer would write a similar opinion, but it would be structured a little different.
Right, so you're comfortable with taking this step at this time,
Yep.
even though we may or may
Yep.
not become within that time frame of the lease?
Yeah.
And, okay, thank you.
I have another question. Is there any liability to us
Right now,
if they buy those cars?
well, yeah, I mean, to the extent that that Health West right now is only an agency of the county, the answer to that is yes, right? They're not their own independent authority yet. And so, you know, if they become an authority, then any future lease agreements will be under Health West as an authority. But right now, they're not.
Would these be then transferred to Health West?
Yeah, I mean, presuming that, you know, I don't think, although I can't guarantee because I haven't asked that question of Ford Motor Credit, but I don't think they would have an issue with the transfer of that equipment. I mean, under the statute, if they become an authority, there would be a transfer of some equipment and other obligations, and there can be contracts between them. So even if Ford Motor Credit
Transfer of ownership's real easy with Ford Motor.
there would also be an agreement that would repay that liability to,
Mhm.
this is all wrapped up in that authority proposition, I guess, if you will. So,
What about the vehicles that they have over there that are just sitting?
yeah, I don't know much about that.
Randy, could
I
you
sure
address
can,
that?
yes.
I mean, I drive by there.
I sure can. They may look like they're sitting when you drive by, but I can guarantee every single car is getting used. I have a mileage sheet for every single
Randy,
one.
some of them sat there all winter and were never even shoveled off. I took 40 pictures in the winter.
I
You guys never
guarantee
moved them.
every single vehicle, I can show you mileage logs, have been used. One of them has been used as little as 300
That white
miles.
van over there,
Some of them may be there because they are totaled. We have two total vehicles this
why
year.
did you get rid of those?
We are going through the process. We have to leave them there until the attorneys come out or until the insurance comes out to remove them. They stay there until they go through the process and then they're
How
removed.
long does that process take?
Could take anywhere from 1 to 3 months. I can tell you right now, if they're getting
They've
fixed,
been there a
parts
lot
are on
longer than
back foot.
that.
Any vehicle you'd like to see, I can show you. We average 5,400 miles per vehicle per year.
I don't believe that, but.
Any other
you wanna say that,
questions?
go ahead.
I'm
Commissioner
just gonna
Payable?
piggyback on Commissioner Hughes, a little bit more detailed question regarding the use of those vehicles. You said that the insurance adjusters or insurance representatives have to come out. Have you already started that process?
For those two vehicles, yes, they're
For two
complete.
vehicles?
Yep, and we have those dollars available for the next vehicles to replace them.
When do you plan on moving more units out besides the two? What is your rotation?
We rotate them based on mileage and years.
Okay.
So what happens is we do lease to own. When the vehicles hit their prime, when we're finished with them, then they go to county auction.
Okay.
I have another question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. If you're gonna take those vehicles and reuse them or get rid of them, does that money go back? You said you've already got that money held aside.
For the two totals,
Okay.
yes.
So you're gonna put that towards these?
Towards the new vehicles, yes, the
Okay,
replacements.
so actually our cost is not gonna be 104,328. What's it gonna be? No.
Actually, those two new vehicles haven't been purchased yet. These four were
Oh.
purchased in fiscal
You
year
just told me they
21.
were, and they were sold and you had the money.
I said they're sold and we have the money.
Then how?
These four vehicles that we are asking for right now are not replacements for those two. They were fiscal year 21 replacements. We just received them the last 2 months. They were approved by Health West Board,
You just
so-
received what?
4 vehicles,
And that's these four?
yes.
So you're coming to ask us after, what if we tell you no?
Ford Motor Credit sent us the opinion letter to be signed the day after we received the vehicles. So at that time, we forwarded it to our corporate
And
counsel.
when was that? In July 23rd of 21?
No, it was just like 2 months, it was within February.
Yeah.
We just received them.
Commissioner Payable?
Just to clarify, the only reason why we're seeing this, we would not have seen this.
Right.
We don't manage their finances. The only reason why we see it is because of the tax exempt status. That's it. So,
Yeah, and my understanding was, at least in the past, there may have been sign-offs on them. We would not offer such an opinion the way it is structured, because it relies on the county and it's tax exempt because Health West is not its own authority or anything, so.
I guess I have a concern that we didn't get a copy of the master lease purchase agreement. So I don't know. I mean, if you want me to vote on okay in it, been nice if I could have looked at it.
We can definitely get to you before full board.
I appreciate that.
I have a printed one right here if you want.
Chris, well,
Right, I normally wouldn't say anything, but Mrs. Hughes, there's ways to ask questions and there's ways to ask questions, but to treat people like they're idiots is
I'm not,
does
treating-
not reflect
I
well
mean
on
to
you.
treat them like they lied to me before. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Our job is to scrutinize all of these things, so I appreciate your
That's
scrutinization
not true.
regardless.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nash?
I beg to differ. I believe our job is to ask questions and ask questions for a reason. You know, what amazes me is it's like, sometimes it's like we just get up here and we're just now looking at this stuff. we get these things early enough so that you can call Brandy, or you can call Mark, or you can call Nancy, or you can call anyone before the meeting. And you don't have to ask all these scrutinizing, but ask them over the phone, face to face, or one-on-one, not out in public, because really this becomes embarrassing for us. You know, I was just telling, I went to a board meeting yesterday, went smooth as cake, and they were done in like 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, I remember those days, you know, when we used to have those kind of meetings. But now it's almost like attack everybody that comes to the podium. And we shouldn't have to go through that. All we need to do is call these folks prior to the meeting. That means you need to read this stuff before it gets here. And then if you need questions, ask them before the meeting. It'll save a lot of trouble. But, you know, sometimes I think we're putting on a show, or we want to embarrass somebody, and that's not what we're up here for. We're up here to do a job for the people that we represent in this community, and not sit here and have you know, who's got the bigger gun war. That's not what this is about. But I just respectfully add that information. Let's try to be a little bit more healthy about how we conduct our questions in business, and let's try to do most of this before we meet.
Mr. Chair. Yes,
I've been pretty
Mr.
quiet
Larry,
in this
go ahead.
meeting, but I am a little offended by other commissioners telling other commissioners what their job is. I do appreciate the scrutiny and receive a fair amount of scrutiny myself, and I don't mind it. And that's the job we're rolling. My job is not necessarily to listen to you guys tell me what my job is. So I may or may not agree with some of the questioning, but I do think that that is our job, is to scrutinize from this position, whether we do it from here or we do it in private phone calls, make sidebar deals. I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be done. I don't mind it being out in the open and in the public, and that's why we're video recording these meetings.
The public has a right to understand where all of us are coming from and those questions and answers. Transparency, absolutely.
I was elected partially because of the fact that I was going to address fiscal responsibility at the county. So questions regarding, in particular, money issues, I believe are always relevant and should be discussed. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I would agree, but I think there's a point where it becomes disrespectful. And I think our job is to be respectful of staff and of fellow commissioners. And if we do that, I think it will look much better for all of us.
Okay, any other questions? Roll call, please.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
No,
Commissioner Laring,
No,
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes,
and Commissioner Seer.
Yes. That item passes. All right, now we'll go to item 8, unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Being none, is there any new business to come before this board? Public comment, is there any public comment? Go ahead.
Is this the last opportunity? This is the last meeting, and my name is Mike Clancy, and I think I had a topic on my public comment, and I'm trying to get to my notes. Just a moment.
safety and services, it says.
It's not like Clancy, that's Fred Clancy. Oh.
And I think my topic was under safety and services.
Correct.
And I want to come before our county commissioners in regards to some things that are very upsetting to me and what is happening with our government at the present time. And I want to first go, a phrase to start this is regarding a movie that was presented back in 1976. And the movie's name was Network. And the guy on the network was a news announcer. And he said some things, and it was, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." And the next thing you knew, everybody that was watching the news network went out to their windows and screamed out the same thing. My issue is that our government is not doing its job. It's not protecting our safety and well-being, which is the main job of all of our commissioners. And I may get really emotional because it's hitting home to me. I'm finding these things that are happening in my own neighborhood, that crimes are going outrageously wrong within our communities. I've got a community watch that we watch things that are going on in our community, and it's an app on our phones. And I see this, I get these apps popping up all the time, and I live right over here in Glenside, for God's sakes. And I can remember this neighborhood being so safe to go to. We have a beautiful park down there. It's not being used. The families aren't getting out. The first time I've been out since COVID, and they let everything off, I was able to walk through my neighborhood, and I got together because everybody came out of their houses and we got to socialize. Well, it's all going south the other way because I don't see our police or anybody safeguarding our neighborhoods. And one important thing was that just happened was my camera, security camera, caught things. I didn't even know that it caught it. My neighbor told me, "Hey, Mike, did your security cameras catch somebody stealing something out of our car?" And I said, "I don't know. When did it happen?" They told me. I went to my security camera, and there it was on the screen, and I was able to capture it. And when I told them, they said, "Well, a police officer will come over and take that information." So I gave it to them. Well, this is happening so much. I even have a neighbor that's just 2 doors down. He's a minister, and he has his church over in Muskegon Heights, and he tells me how terrible things are going on there. This stuff has got to stop. And we aren't doing our job of protecting the citizens here in Muskegon. And it's much more important than the money that we spend on putting a circle around with artwork up. And we need to look at what our priorities are here.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Can I speak once more?
Yes, you can. State your name, please.
Thank you. Al Richards from Twin Lake. Make you aware that on the 14th of February, all across this country, we approached our county prosecutors with a 205-page document on Anthony Fauci and We the People versus Alex Azar, Anthony Fauci, Peter Daszak, Ralph Barrick, the FDA, the CDC, NIAID, Moderna, and Pfizer, with a 6-page proposed indictment for crimes against the people of this county. I submitted that personally to Mr. Hilson. Okay, so that's in his possession. I waited 1 week to get a response from him. Then I called, and I talked to his person in the office. He would not talk to me. So I told her what comes next. I submitted another letter. I gave him a 72-hour notice. Okay, I gave him another grace period to respond. He's got a responsibility as our prosecuting attorney. If he has evidence of crime, to turn that over to the sheriff. And then the sheriff, upon our request, we the people, start an investigation and call a grand jury. Let the people decide this issue as to whether or not they'll bring it to court. All right. So he did not respond, and I pleaded one more time with him because my children go to Catholic Central. And he's on the board over there, etc. I pleaded to this man's sense of morality. So anyways, now I FOIA'd his surety bond. I'm waiting to hear from the Michigan Department of Treasury in regards to what kind of bond this man has. And we're gonna make a claim against his bond. All right? And I've notified the sheriff now at this point as well, and I'll be pursuing him as well.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Appreciate your
You're
time.
welcome. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, final board comments, please. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman,
Here's Colnick, go ahead.
during the meeting today, there was a request to include that 100 in this particular meeting. The budget, the checks that were written was 171 pages.
Yes.
And there was a request to include that in our agendas going forward.
Okay, yes.
Was there a decision on it?
Well, that,
Wasn't it
I guess I
motion?
don't understand.
I thought the request is to make sure you have it.
Yeah, just
By
email it
Friday?
to me. Yeah, just email it. to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Email
it's
is
in the
fine.
packet. Is that not what we're talking about?
Well, I think that
I wanna
the
look at the-
request was to have printed copies of it.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Okay, all right. then motion.
That's
No.
only for you. We won't do that for you. Love you, Bob. Okay,
I could have sworn, I thought Kathy said it was mailed last Friday.
I think
Right.
She said it was, but I don't have it.
it's in your,
Email.
I know, but I couldn't find it. I mean, I could have messed, you couldn't find yours either.
Yeah, but don't trust that.
Okay.
Like I said.
I'm with you, Marcia. Okay, any other final board comment?
So
Okay.
it was in the packet, but not the
Yes.
full 171 pages.
Yeah. Is it separate?
It was, the motions were in there, but I didn't see.
I didn't
the
see it either. I got
171
the-
pages.
I got an email with all. of
But
it in
with
there.
this new software, I probably am wrong, like. Marcia
Yeah, I
said.
know, me too.
But I just went back and looked too. and couldn't find it.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Nick.
One thing I wanted to clear up, two things. One is I wanted to make sure everybody understood that I was not against GCI. I just want to make sure that we follow a policy strategy that we have to rebid these things out or
Right, I understood that.
At the end of every contract?
yes, yes.
When they
And
come
I push that, this has been a norm of mine, Mark probably can attest.
I
to this.
agree.
It's been a norm of mine since I've been on the
I
county.
kind of agree with that.
It's always just
But you
make sure
voted
we're doing
the
the
other
right thing with everything, because you never want anybody to come back and
did.
think you're just giving stuff away to people either. So that's something that I've been an advocate for. But I also didn't want anybody to think that I was sitting here telling anyone what they had to do. I was just making some suggestions on how we can better ask questions, maybe before the meeting, or at least, with a little better intellectual tone and not so much of a fight with our employees. Because you have to remember, I mean, for me, I might not like everything, but I trust the people that work for us. I trust our administrator. I trust our clerk. I trust our drain commissioner. I trust them as much as I possibly can. And anything that I have a question about, I'm okay with asking them that. But I'm okay with listening with them and letting them get an answer. But I never want to attack any of them before I get an answer, because then I'm being kind of subjective and already having a prejudiced mind towards what I'm trying to ask, when I should find out the information before I try to jump over. But that's all I was trying to say is, take it or leave it. But I just think it helps with better cohesiveness with us and with staff. But and it's kind of embarrassing when people are watching this all the time too, and listen to how we talk to some of the staff.
Any other comments? Any other final board comments? Anybody? Going? All right, we're going to take a break for a couple of minutes and then we're going to close session.
If you're closed session.
Let's do
you
the
gotta read it first.
motion
Yeah, why
first.
don't you do the motion first?
I'll make a motion to go into
First,
closed
you gotta
session.
read this.
So
You
moved.
gotta read- you gotta read it.
What do we have to read?
That's right. I gotta read that.
Motion
He
to go into
motioned
closed
and I
session.
seconded.
No,
We gotta read
You
it.
gotta read it on record.
Charles, would you like to read it,
Oh,
please?
all right.
sure.
Thank you.
Closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268H to consider material exempt from discussions or disclosure by state or federal statute But note, a board is not permitted to go into closed session to discuss an attorney's oral opinion as opposed to a written legal memorandum.
Second.
That was the motion.
And Melinda second.
And it was second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Gotta have. a
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Leering. Commissioner Leering,
A wink doesn't count.
I heard you the first time.
Commissioner Nash.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins
Yes.
and Commissioner Leering,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, 2 minutes.
How much?
Two.
Oh.
Get a twinkle minute. Just a tweet. We don't have time for that. Just kidding.
Now I know.